Hello everyone, it's me, the author. I've got a different video in mind today. What you're seeing now is me recording a speed paint I'm doing. And I'm just gonna be making this so that I can give you guys an idea of what to expect from my channel going forward. So, if you're watching this video, I am assuming you've seen Rise from Ashes, the short film that I posted in 3 parts not too long ago. I will admit that short film might have been a bit difficult to understand. I wouldn't blame anyone who feels that way, because it was a lot more symbolic than I think it originally was going to be. Just so we're all on the same page, if you've seen it, the characters that you were introduced to with the boy at the beginning of the story, they were all meant to be like his imaginary friends, his imaginary characters he created to go on adventures with. They don't exist in the real world. However, all in all, I'm very satisfied with how that came out. I do wish it could have been fully animated, but I am glad that it was able to come out as good as it did. And I think the fact that there wasn't as much talking as there was going to be really helped it. Because it really didn't need that much talking, if we're really being honest. It was much more of a visually told story than anything else. And I'm really glad with how it did. It did very well. Not the most viewed video, but I mean, whatever, it doesn't really matter anyways. I'm not going to explain too much about Rise from Ashes because I mainly feel like that'll spoil things to come, because believe it or not, Rise from Ashes needed to be a video on this channel because the information gathered from that short film will be very important going forward with the story I'm looking to tell. Because there's a lot more going on than you may realize in these videos, but again, I'm not going to give away too much here. But just so we're all on the same page, at the end of Rise from Ashes, it was revealed that whatever he's supposed to be in the mirror actually has escaped and now presumably is going after the boy and the girl. I think there might be a rumor going around eventually on my channel that I'm just making up the series as I go. I'm going to make sure people don't get that idea. That is not all what is going on. One thing I want you guys to keep in mind with this series is that there is not one part of this series I haven't already thought about in my head. It doesn't mean that things won't change as the channel grows, but just know that if there's a coincidence, maybe there's a bigger reason for it than you may think. And maybe the backgrounds, the smaller details, and what characters say and how they say it is meant to mean a lot more than people give it credit for. Just an idea. I'd say the reason Rise from Ashes took a lot longer to make than I expected was because I wanted to make sure it was in line with the story I'm looking to tell in this series. And also because the original version was made in the Framecast app, which is what I use to animate all my videos right now. And it looked horrible. The characters literally looked like flying pieces of paper. I might show you a clip for a second so you get what I mean, but it looked awful. But the main reason was that the story kept changing. And in the end, I finally settled on what story I wanted to tell, and that's the version I went with. So a lot of things in that Rise from Ashes short film are done to set things up for later on down the road. So what can people expect from my channel going forward? Now that we're done with the Rise from Ashes stuff, what's coming up next? Well, one thing to expect in the future are more projects like Rise from Ashes, but possibly done on a bigger scale. One that's coming up soon, in fact I might start casting for it soon, is a newer project called The Angel and the Prisoner. I'm not going to give too many details, but that's the name of the project, and I think it's going to go awesome. Any advice that I would give to people who are watching my channel is simply this. If you really are just here because you want to watch ridiculous cartoon shorts and weird adventures, then you can just watch them and not care at all. But if you're more interested in the bigger story I'm looking to tell, pay special attention to certain little details. I'm not saying you need to count how many fingers the characters have or something like that. Smaller details is what I like to think of as, say, a background. Sometimes there's something in the background image that you really kind of ignore, but actually is more important than you may realize. It might help tell the story a bit better, or it could be a fun Easter egg that means a lot more. And also the smaller videos that I post, the ones that are really short and seem to be just weird, actually contain a few hidden secrets if you look closely. And sometimes, you kinda gotta look in other places on the place where the video is. Places you don't usually think to look. Now, again, one thing I want to reiterate more than anything else is that all of this is subject to change. Not that I'll eventually become lazy and that I suddenly won't care as much anymore, but that the story might change, or my intentions with the channel might change as I get older. Because one thing to keep in mind is that right now, I'm still merely a high schooler. So, I'm still young, I'm not as experienced as other YouTubers. However, one thing that I do know is that I've got a solid goal in mind for where I'm going with this channel. And so I just wanted to share that with all of you so that you would know that I'm not only doing this for fun. I am doing it for fun, but there's another reason I'm doing it, and that's to tell a bigger story that I hope a lot of people have a good way of receiving. I am very much a storyteller. Pretty much everything that I do, whether it be on YouTube or just in general, it's always going to have some type of story behind it. Almost every piece of art that I create has some significance or meaning to it. That doesn't mean it's always a logical one, it just means that there always is a meaning to it. There's always a deeper story than you may think. It was the same thing with like Rise from Ashes, the short film. A lot of people may not realize it and just pass it and leave it alone, but there's a deeper story to it, a deeper reason it exists, a deeper reason that in the adventure that we're watching unfold, I decided to throw it in there. A deeper reason why that is, that many people might not have taken notice of. The point is that if you're looking at these videos thinking, this person seems to have some kind of religious agenda, you are absolutely right. But one thing I do keep in mind is I'm trying not to let it too heavily influence the characters in the story to the point where it's like Bible Man. Because Lord knows the last thing that it needs is to be that. The main thing I'm trying to get across here is it's almost like what the morals you would see in Bible Man, but taken a bit more seriously. So the author is not literally going to be quoting Bible verses every other sentence, mainly because he doesn't have the whole Bible memorized. No, he's more just going to be learning lessons along with everyone else. And there's no, say, VeggieTales villain that wants to get people to stop believing in God. No, the main villain, which there is one, the main villain, he doesn't care who believes in God. That's not what he's focused on. It's not as much a story of, say, a belief in God, an unbelief in God. That's not the story I'm going to tell here. The story I'm looking to tell is more of a spiritual coming-of-age story. The story of one man's testimony. The story of a conflict between individuals rather than the forces of good and evil. A more realistic type of story. Okay, by this point in the video, you should have seen some of my animatics for future videos. These are the little plans that I've put in place so I know what the video is going to look like, just in a simpler scale. See, it's more like I'm planning out like how the shots are going to look and how the characters are going to move. Not fully animated, but pretty close, almost like a storyboard of sorts. It sort of does give a feel of what the episode might end up looking like. It's gonna be fully animated, don't worry, it's gonna look better. But one thing you might keep in mind is that there are other characters coming in out of nowhere. That's because the author and Tim aren't the only characters in the story. And not only is that true, but it's not also just the other character in the mirror and the mystery girl who's going to show up soon too. They're not the only characters. There are other characters to be introduced. I want to establish the universe that these characters are living in. And the thing about these new characters is not all of them believe in God. It's going to be a more realistic approach. This is just letting you guys know to chill out. This isn't going to be a story where everyone's like, oh, this is why you should believe in God. No, this is why you should believe in God. And all the people who don't believe are villains. That is not what I'm doing. That's not realistic. No, I'm going to portray them more as real human beings, because that's what they're meant to be, just fourth realm versions, so they're not normal. But that's fine, because in this day and age, you really can't want people to be normal. Anyways, but it's fine, because that's really what I want. I want these characters to live in a place where people can relate to them more. And you can't relate it to people when they don't live in a world you can believe. They have to be surrounded by people who would have realistic beliefs. Say there's an atheist who doesn't believe in God, but is more than happy to help out a Christian in need. Those are the type of people that I want to have in this universe. There are plenty of jerks out there, trust me, we'll get to them. But I want to first establish that this is in fact a world where people can be nice and not Christian, because that's a more realistic way of looking at life. It doesn't mean the author necessarily agrees with the fact that with their beliefs, but the idea is that it's a more realistic way of looking at it. It's more of saying, hey, these people exist. I'm not going to ignore them. I'm not going to dismiss them. Because that's not really okay. I want to portray them, and I want to portray them well. So, if you might be part of one of these groups, maybe you could leave a comment down below to give me some advice on how to properly portray the group you're a part of. Because what I want more than anything is to make sure that you guys are properly represented. Because if I represent you guys poorly, not only are you guys going to beat me up over it, more than anything, I'm going to beat myself up over it. One example is with Tim's design. I did not intend for that. Here's what I intended for Tim. Originally, he was just a white boy, but he was going to be disheveled because he's been living in the dump. He's homeless. And then I thought, there's a lot of white characters in my series. I want to change that. Let's make Tim a different color, because I thought it would be good to represent other minorities. And the fact that Tim seems to have a better head on his shoulders than the author does, I thought it would be a nice gesture. I wanted to be nice, and I didn't really change the story any. As soon as I put the first video up with that character, one of my commenters commented, "Why do you have a slave?" I took one look at Tim after that, and I just kind of face palmed. And it totally backfired. So just so you know, no, Tim is not a slave. He just accidentally looks like one because I'm an idiot. But honestly, that's the thing. That's the kind of stuff I want to be able to spot before I put it in a video. So that's why I want you guys to give me those comments. And by this point in the video, things should have wrapped up. I'd like to thank you for listening to my voice for so long, by the end of the video. I'm glad you decided to stick around, and hopefully this explains sort of where we came from and where we plan to be going. Be sure to keep your ears open and subscribe so that you can tell when certain things are released. And keep your eyes hidden for secret clues, because you never quite know where I'm going to lead them. And if you're paying attention, you might be able to guess where my story is going, where I'm going with all my vision. I made that sound like I'm some mastermind. I'm not. I'm recording this in my room. But anyways, I'm just trying to tell a great story. Anyways, comment down below like any advice you have and any suggestions you could have for the series. Also, if you follow me on Instagram, I'll try to remember to leave that information in the description. You can actually see some updates on the channel before I actually update them on the channel itself. It'll provide you with a bunch of information you might not have actually known. So anyways, thanks for watching, and I guess I'll see you in the next one, whether it be animated or just a vlog of me doing stupid stuff again.